This is a stimulus update and daily news report. Got some important updates to share with you with Social Security COLA at 8.7% officially announced. Might be as good as it gets, but there is the $2,400 per year bill, which could pay out Social Security recipients $200 per month. We'll go over that. Plus, is the $1,400 Social Security stimulus check going to pass in 2022? And when it comes to the economy and a recession, economists are basically saying we are going to have a recession, but what is the White House going to do about it? I'll play a video clip on Fox News of a White House economist getting grilled and in the hot seat when it comes to economic news. It'll give you some other important updates as well. Hope you're having a terrific Thursday. If you appreciate the fact-based, fast-paced updates, hit the like button down below and subscribe to the channel for more daily, straight-to-the-point updates. If you appreciate this channel and the daily videos, just hit the subscribe button. Free to do so, helps out the channel. So, as you may notice, still in a lot of pain from my ankle injury, and right after this, going to the airport to go to New York for a wedding for the weekend. So we'll see how that goes. I'll keep you updated. Anyways, let's get into it here. So the 8.7% Social Security increase in 2023 could be as big as it gets. So if we look back in the 80s, it was like, I think 14%. Which is really high, but inflation was high as well. So when it comes to 2024, so Social Security benefits are going to up a lot in 2023, but don't expect to see similar size increases the years to follow. But what if inflation gets even higher this upcoming year with the recession about to happen? Almost all economists are saying that a recession is going to happen, and if it does, are we going to get recession stimulus checks? We've gotten them in the past. In the year 2001 and 2008, recession stimulus checks were sent out. And if a recession does happen, would the COLA increase even more? Well, let's not get ahead of ourselves. It's not even 2023 yet when it comes to that. But if the bill, this one, the Sanders, Warren, and colleagues introduced legislation to expand Social Security by $2,400 a year and extend solvency for 75 years. So the $2,400 is pretty good, but they will change the COLA requirement. So if a recession does happen, this bill does pass, they're able to make the COLA higher or lower based on different circumstances, economic circumstances. That is different from, let's say, a younger working family. The fixed income, Social Security, senior citizen, and veteran community, they're living on a totally different standards, almost in a totally different economy. So basically, this bill will help out with that. And the $200 per month is definitely a bonus when it comes to that as well. Is this going to happen? We've been waiting to see. It's not going to happen before the midterm elections, which is just a few weeks away. So when it comes to this bill, we're still waiting for Congress to do something about it. Maybe before the end of the year, I don't know. Then when it comes to, could the $1,400 stimulus check petition be passed in 2022? So this is that Senior Citizens League $1,400 check. Is it going to be passed in 2022? Well, it doesn't look like it now because there is no official bill in Congress for the $1,400 stimulus checks for just Social Security recipients. So at this moment, to answer this question, no, it's not going to happen in 2022. Could it happen in 2023? I think with a recession about to happen, almost anything is possible. We don't know how bad it is going to get. If we thought this was bad now with inflationary rates and how the economy is, it could get a lot worse in 2023. At least that's what economists are saying. And 8 in 10 say economy and inflation will factor heavily on their votes. So according to this recent poll, the economy is going to decide the November midterm elections. Let me know your thoughts on that. Is the economy a big driver for you to vote, whether Republican or Democrat or whoever you're voting for? Personally, I'm independent. Excuse me, I pick and choose between Democrats and Republicans. I'm mainly about policies over politics and people over parties. So that's just my point of view. But I'm really curious what you think about that. And then markets and economists are increasingly certain of recession. Basically, everybody is saying that a recession is going to happen except for President Biden and the Biden administration. as well as most Democrats too. It doesn't make sense for them to say, I understand it, politically they don't want to say a recession is going to happen because that'll tank their midterm elections. But maybe come November 10th or November 7th or whatever, maybe they'll change their mind because there's no longer a vote to try to go for, so they may say news differently. But yeah, when it comes to a recession, very likely at this point, big companies, CEOs, economists, basically everyone is saying it, which is pretty sad. But when it comes to what is going to be done about this, take a look at what the White House plans to do in the hot seat here on Fox News.
Well, joining us now, White House Council of Economic Advisors member Jared Bernstein. Welcome back to Fox News Sunday.
Thanks for inviting me. Great to see you again.
You too. Okay, let's start here. The headline in the Wall Street Journal this morning says economists are putting the probability of a recession in the next 12 months at 63%. That's up from 49% in July's survey. Soft landing will likely remain a mythical outcome. Over the New York Times, they say it's not going well. Underlying inflation trends are headed in the wrong direction. Now, September numbers were worse than forecast. August and September were helped a little bit by gas prices going down.
Right.
They seem to be moving in the wrong direction right now. Is it time to admit the massive federal spending under this administration is not only not helping Americans, it may be hurting them?
Well, let's start right there, Shannon. I think it's really important to get this number 1.4 trillion into this discussion right now. That's the amount of deficit reduction in fiscal year 22, okay? That comes on top of about 350 billion in deficit reduction in the year before that.
But as we've talked about, that comes off of massive COVID spending.
Well, actually, part of it is an unwinding of COVID spending. You're right about that. But in percent terms, the bigger contributor to that decline in deficit spending is receipts, receipts coming into the Treasury, and that's because of how strong the economy has been. And that also gets to the question you just raised and this issue of recession. We have an unemployment rate that's 3.5%. Okay, there is no recession that would prevail with that kind of an unemployment rate. We're obviously adding hundreds of thousands of jobs per month. We have consumers who still have pretty strong balance sheets. We have job vacancies that are quite elevated. So there's a lot of tailwinds in this economy, a lot of strength. And when President Biden just said on the tape you played that the U.S. is uniquely positioned to do two things, to ease the price pressures we face, which are very real, you correctly referenced them right out of the gate. We've called them, like they are, squeezing family budgets while maintaining these economic gains. That's our mission. We believe we can accomplish that. We actually think the probability for a soft landing is good.
Okay. In that Wall Street Journal piece, they also talk about predictions for Q1, Q2 next year to also be negative territory. Would you concede then? Because a lot of people do use the definition, 2 bad quarters, negative action equals a recession. You're saying we're not there right now. But,
correct.
But if we went through continued negative quarters through the first half of 23, would you then admit we're in a recession?
First of all, it is not up to the White House to call a recession. That's called by an academic group.
But you, Jared Bernstein.
Yeah, what I would look at the following variables, which happens to be the same ones that the group I was just talking about. Retail sales, payroll employment, consumer spending, industrial production, all of those have not been flashing red. All of those are not in recessionary territory. Now, if you're asking me to look around a corner and say where the economy is going to be, I got to tell you that everybody's crystal ball is a bit cracked right now. And
yes.
I think the uncertainty out there makes it tough. But let's talk about energy, which is so key here, okay? You just mentioned it yourself. In this consumer price report, where prices were, no question, elevated to a point that family budgets are squeezed, gas was down 5%. And in fact, the price of gas fell about a third in the third quarter of this year. Now, remember, it peaked out at north of $5 a gallon. Last seen it was $3.89. I know because I checked this morning.
So did I.
And there are 14 states with the price of gas at $3.50 or below. So that's some progress, and it relates to President Biden's release of oil from the strategic reserves.
But how long can we do that? If we're doing millions of barrels at a time, there is a bottom to that.
So I knew you would ask me that because I know you're very interested in the strategic reserve and its capacity.
As all Americans should be.
Yeah, on a Sunday morning, what else are we thinking about than SPRO capacity? Okay.
Exactly.
There are still 400 million barrels of oil in the strategic reserve. It is more than half full. I think people don't quite have that capacity number in their head. We've never done a draw that's of that magnitude, and the largest draw that we've ever done that President Biden presided over in March is 180 million barrels. So the fact is that there is capacity there to use the SPR to deal with some of the energy shocks we're seeing in the world. But I'm not saying we will. That's up to the president to decide, and he hasn't made that decision yet. But if you look at the unconscionable actions of Putin, weaponizing energy, amplified by the short-sighted and misguided decision by OPEC Plus recently, then sure, having the SPRO there for a potential release is an important tool.
And when those prices move in the right direction, that is a good thing to ripple to all the other issues that show up in the CPI.
Right.
But let's talk about this. When President Biden took office, inflation was about 3%. Gas prices were about $2.39, I think, a gallon. So we can't possibly say that things have gotten better or we're anywhere near where they were 2 years ago. Let's talk about the realities for folks. Groceries up 13% last month, year to year. Eggs more than 30%, milk more than 15%. Our new polling shows that 71% of Americans say they are having to cut back just to afford necessities, not anything fun or luxurious. And also, they say that compared to their situation 2 years ago, they are worse off, a majority of them. So what do you say to those Americans, though? This has happened on your watch.
Let me speak to them directly, which is all of those facts are facts of which we are acutely aware. And when President Biden came out to talk about this last inflation war, he started by talking about exactly that, the squeeze on family budgets. And I think you have to ask yourself, is this administration doing what we need to do to help ease those pressures? Now, remember, these are global price pressures. All the statistics you just cited, they're actually worse in Europe and the UK. Inflation is higher there, in part because they're more...
Not in France, for example.
Okay, but in the EU in general, I know that inflation is double digits there, and the UK as well. And the reason is because they're more exposed to energy, and we just went through some of those energy numbers. But I think what you have to ask yourself, Shannon, or really more importantly, what the people that you're just talking to have to ask them, do we have the policy set? And is the Fed doing what it needs to do to ease these price pressures? Now, you know the Inflation Reduction Act passed. This is a measure that lowers prescription drug costs, that lowers the cost of insulin, that lowers the cost of medical care. There are 13 million families who will be paying $800 less per year. If you were paying $10,000, if you're someone on Medicare on your prescription drugs, you're going to save $8,000 under the IRA. So these measures are in effect, and Republicans have said they want to take them away. So if you were paying hundreds of dollars on insulin per month, and now you get to pay $35 starting in January, they want to take that away. That, to me, is a recipe for more inflation, higher costs, not easing the pressures that you just took us through.
Okay, I will ask Steve Scalise, the congressman, is going to be with us in just minutes. We'll ask him about that. In the meantime, let's talk about mortgages, because we talked about this a little bit before we got started. Let's use the example of a median home price about $390,000, 20% down, back when an inflation rate was about 3.05%. That would have been $1,324 a month. Okay, so let's fast forward that to now, because mortgage rates have more than doubled this year alone. So if you took that same house at a 6.92 mortgage, $2,000 a month, it's $735 more each month. That's thousands and thousands of dollars for an average family if they want to get into a home price now. The Fed is expected to hike rates November, December. We'll see how far that goes on. But the Fed chair has actually said there will be some pain. Those are his words with these hikes. How painful is it going to get?
Well, I think you have to distinguish between people who are buying homes now and the vast majority of mortgage holders who've locked in rates that are much lower than that. You're definitely right that at that margin, the price of financing a mortgage, of course, goes up with the interest rate and with the mortgage rate. But again, I think that this gets to the question of, are we implementing, and by we I mean not just the federal government, but in this case the Federal Reserve as well, are we implementing the necessary policies to ease inflationary pressures? I would say the answer is unequivocally yes. Now, we're not going to get into the Fed's knitting because we respect an independent Federal Reserve, but the president has very much approved of their rate hiking campaign because they're the first and foremost inflation fighter. Now, one of the first sectors that experiences the impact of these rate hikes is housing, and the housing sector is cooling. Now, that doesn't find its way into the price index for a while. It comes in with a lag. But if you look at rents have come down significantly. They're still highly elevated in terms of their year-over-year change, but they've come down 4 or 5 percentage points. That's going to take a while to feed into the CPI, but it is moving in the right direction. And so that's what I'm trying to get across here, that whether it's the Inflation Reduction Act, whether it's our work in the ports, whether it's our work with energy and the release of oil from the reserves, we are doing all we can to ease inflationary pressures, and we see results. It's going to take some time for those results to get into the price index. We'd like to see that happen a whole lot faster. We're going to try to work to make that happen.
Yeah,
but we are engaged in the appropriate policies in this
regard. Okay, so let me put up these poll numbers then, because the American people are confused about that. They don't think your policies are working. When it comes to how the president is doing on the economy and the inflation, he is upside down by a wide margin in our latest polling. So why aren't they getting the message? I mean, clearly people don't feel like any of this is working for them yet at home.
I think because so much of what's going on in inflation gets just down to the trip to the supermarket and the trip to the gas station. Now, I think if you ask people how they feel about paying over $5 a gas in mid-June and well under $4 now, I think it's about $3.89 nationally, $3.50 in 14 states, including Florida, North Carolina, and Texas, so some significant population there. They tell you they feel pretty good about that, and I think it's unequivocal that the president fingerprints are on that decline, in part because of the release of oil from the reserves. We're doing what we can in the food space. I think that another answer to your question, Shannon, is that some of what happens is getting back to normal, which consumers don't always recognize. So shelves are now stocked basically as they were pre-pandemic. People don't see containers going in and out of ports, but in fact, the throughput of containers getting through ports is back to where it was. In fact, it's ahead of where it was pre-pandemic.
But back to normal, like $2.39 a gallon for gas. Are we going to get back to that normal?
I'm sorry.
$2.39 a gallon?
Yeah, I don't.
Since the president took office?
Certainly don't. It's very hard to look around the corner and see where gas prices are going that far ahead. As I've noted, they've come down significantly. Most recently, they've started ticking back down again, just a few cents in the past few days, and that has to do with refineries coming online in the Midwest and in California. I think the key story there is this administration doing as much as we can to help increase the energy supply? And I think the answer is unequivocally yes.
So what are your thoughts there? Do you agree, disagree? Do you think that Jared Bernstein answered those questions correctly? Should the interviewer pressed a little harder? Let me know your thoughts on that. And that is all the news that I have for you today to hopefully brighten your day a bit. Here's my daughter Bella's tip of the day.
Oh, guys, I didn't see you there. Hi, guys. This is Bella's tip of the day. I want to tell you the one thing that you should do when you feel something. When you feel something like happy or sad, tell someone. Be exposed. Show the whole world what you feel. Sorry, I was dreaming. So, anyways, that was all I wanted to say for today. Bye.
Thank you so much for watching. Appreciate your support. I'm trying my hardest to do these videos for you, and it's still hurting, but I just want to show my dedication. So used to giving you these updates, but yeah. We are about to go to the airport to go to a wedding in New York, and yeah, we'll see how that goes. I can't even walk. I'm still on crutches, so we'll see what happens and how it all goes. Getting a little anxious about it, actually, so I'll keep you updated. I'm gonna try to give you some updates when I'm in New York, but yeah, no promises there. I'm gonna try my hardest to see if I can do that. Anyways, hopefully you have a great rest of your day. If you want to check out any of my other videos, my other channels, click right up here, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care, be safe. Thank you for watching.